Yeah, I think we can get it started slowly, and then that's what recordings are for. So
Yeah, exactly. So people can see things later on YouTube and all kinds of outlets. Okay, so let me introduce myself really quick. So I'm Mark. I'm leading CDK on AWS side. And with me is Thorsten from the community is an AWS hero. So we are working very closely together on feedback regarding CDK and all kinds of things. And today we want to have a community meeting because we would like to learn from the community how they feel about the product direction, certain features, giving us unsolicited feedback, not only through GitHub issues and GitHub threads. So sometimes verbal communication is just faster, a bit more interactive, and we like that style too. We started with that mid last year somewhere, and so far we have received good feedback and opens new communication channels which we like. And today we will show some demos from Vishal and Alizen, and that will be great to show what we have in our bucket. And we can also have a Q&A at the end where you can ask any kind of question that might be interesting and give us feedback, as I said. So with that, I would say let's get started. Thorsten, do you want to introduce yourself?
yeah, sure. My name is Thorsten Höger. I'm not with AWS. That's why I'm wearing my company shirt today to make it clear I'm not AWS, even if a lot of people think that. So I'm part of the community or the AWS Hero program now in the DevTools category, working with CDK and CDK team for nearly 8 years now. So yeah, doing a lot in that space, and also helping the community with the Open Construct Foundation. I just posted the link to our YouTube channel where we are hosting these community meetings, so the past ones and also this one. And we're also hosting the CDK Dev Slack workspace where you can do a lot of discussion, meet the team, tell them what you need to do. If there's no community meeting right now, then you can just use the Slack channel to tell them what you need. So that's it from my side. And yeah, let's get it started with the first presentation.
So that's Vishal, right?
Yes.
So Vishal will talk about IC, MCP, and skills. So everything that you might need to get your agentic workflow going with CDK much better. So
Yeah.
Vishal, take it.
Just minor questions, ICMCP and the Kiro Power. I will talk a little bit about skills as well, but yeah. Let me see if this. Do you see my screen?
Not yet.
No, no mind. I'll just share. It says the host is not allowing sharing for this meeting.
I was afraid that exactly that is happening. And
Lovely.
Lovely, because we don't have a host.
Oh no.
Oh wait, I can claim host. Let me try that. Let's see.
Yeah, our planned host is Sully, and he is stuck in some airport. So that's our problem right now.
Ruh-roh.
But Sully is online, so let me see if he can give me the host key real quick.
We need a host key. Jesus.
I thought that it delegates automatically to somebody else if the host leaves.
Yeah, but the host hasn't joined yet, even.
Oh,
So I think that's different.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, we can cut this out for the video, right?
I will think about it.
Why would we? That's so realistic.
Yeah.
IT.
Sully is answering, so let's see.
So I can at least talk about the need for the MCP and the Kiro Power, right? Before we get into demo. So I think that'll be useful, right?
That's good.
So yeah, I think one of the challenges with CDK is that when you're building an application, there's multiple ways to do something, right? So you can organize your stacks in different ways. You can use L1 or L2 constructs to achieve the same goal. You can maybe grant like overly permissive policies if you're not careful. There are lots of challenges. There's lots of decisions to make, right? And I think there are two things that customers and I think AI agents benefit from as well, which is one is like up to date and like gold standard knowledge, and then the ability to access opinionated best practices and help you actually make decisions. This is for CDK customers, right? So a couple of the gaps that we plug. So we decided to build an ISC MCP server for two reasons. One is to give agents access to the latest knowledge, which is as we launch new features, you want agents to have access to the latest stuff. Hey.
In an airplane.
Is he in an airplane?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Yeah. So you want agents to have access to the latest stuff. And I think one of the key parts of CDK as well is that not all of the good documentation is on AWS docs, right? A lot of it is in GitHub. It's on constructs.dev. It's across different places where agents won't always know to look, or humans won't always know to look for how to do things well, right? The other one is there's no like the CDK team technically has like a best practices page on docs.aws Amazon. It's not the easiest for a person or for an agent to follow. So we kind of distilled those ideas into like a simpler like instructions file that the agent can follow to do things like in a best practice way. And I'll actually show you like concrete examples of that, right? In terms of stack organization, how to bootstrap your app, doing policies, using CDK nag, which is like an opinionated best practice, and so on, right? So that's the reason for the ICMCP. The Kiro Power, so powers are basically kind of like SOPs for agents, except they're loaded dynamically by Kiro on demand. So the idea is that Kiro doesn't want to pollute your context window for agents with too much information up front. So it will activate a power on demand. The ISC power we built is basically an SOP for the agent to use the MCP tools correctly for a CDK workflow. So like instead of relying on the person who's using the MCP or the agent that's using the MCP to know exactly what to do, the power actually tells it, okay, do these steps if you want to build a CDK app, right? So it's not that much more knowledge. It's just a bit of guidance. And I can show, once I'm allowed to share my screen, I can show you the difference as well. Yeah, so that's the background on the MCP server and the Kiro Power as well. I'm not sure if I missed anything, or does anybody have any questions? I'm happy to answer any while we wait.
Just for the few new folks that came in. So the host of this meeting is not really available. So we are missing screen sharing permissions. And I cannot take over the host to allow that. So Sally is trying to do that while he's on a plane. So that makes it a bit harder for us to get with the demo started.
Yeah, but maybe one question I put in a chat here, and now the person also joined. I was thinking while we're talking about Kiro Powers, there's the community collection, the prompts.dev, and I just wanted to highlight that. And then Christian joined, so he's the author of prompts.dev. So will that power also be there, or is it already there?
I don't. So when you say will the power, you mean will the power be hosted on prompts.dev?
Will be available, but maybe Christian can talk more about how it works, because I just try to explain things that I don't fully understand, and the author is here. So okay, he needs to find a room in the office. Benefits of going to an office.
Yeah. So I just shared the Kiro Power, so folks can get an idea of what it looks like, right? It's basically a markdown file that tells the agent what to do. using the MCP server. So if you, this would have been easier with screen sharing. But if you scroll down to like the development workflow section, you can see it's telling it what tools to use to actually find information, perform actions, etc. Hello.
Hey guys, now here for you.
Hi.
You might be wondering why I look so weird. We have Carnival in Cologne today, so that's why I'm a seahorse today.
Nice.
So don't get surprised.
I was joking with Thorsten in the morning that we should have had like red noses or something, but great to have someone that actually plays it real. So we are still struggling to get permissions to screen share because the host is not online.
Yeah, Sally said I can't do it either. He says start in a room.
Recording. With that delay, I guess Vishal, you have to trim your demo a bit.
It's fine. I will communicate the idea, and then I think we can move on. I think Ali's demo also is very interesting, so we should get to that as well.
Yeah.
Do we just quick question? Do we have like a what's after the demo? How much time do we have for demos? So I'll adjust accordingly.
So in total we have 40 minutes or something. We want to have some Q&A at the end if possible.
And 15.
But I'm also missing the people that were in the other room. So I see Thorsten and Christian, but not seeing someone else from before.
Okay. I will get started anyway, and then we can. This is being recorded anyway, so I think it's fine. Right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So just a quick recap. I think as I was calling out, one of the challenges with building CDK applications, especially as they get more complex, is the amount of decisions you have to make. Right. There are like stack organization, which kind of constructs to use, policy, there's compliance stuff as well. Right. So it leaves folks with a lot of decisions to make. We want folks, at least who are using, for the MCP server specifically, folks who are using AI agents to have access to the latest information. So like latest knowledge stuff that we launch, and also information that's not only officially on AWS docs, because there's a lot of good stuff on GitHub that's out there as well. And we want to distill our best practices or opinion into something that's more agent friendly, that it can follow easily and provide like best practice guidance, right? So the MCP, this MCP in particular is called IC because it's like CDK and CFN. The idea is that the agent can use this to help you build like a good CDK app using like best practices from the start, but then also look at the generated CFN, validate that, troubleshoot deployments, etc. Right? I won't have time to go into the whole like deployment cycle because obviously we're short on time. But I will just give you a preview of like what this looks like using Kiro without and with the MCP, right? So just a simple example. I'm going to say, just copy my prompt to make it quicker. Yeah. So I'm just going to say, hey, I'm building a new serverless application, which does the following. It's a REST API. This is a very well-known pattern, right? REST API, Lambda, DynamoDB. And I'm saying, okay, make sure to use CDK best practices and don't write any code yet. I just want Kiro to tell me what to do, right? On the left, you notice I actually don't have the IC server, MCP server enabled, right? So it's just going to be using whatever the model knows and the AWS knowledge MCP, which is good for like knowing AWS services, right? And this is going to be a bit more prescriptive here. So this is going to lean on what the model already knows, right? Or what the knowledge MCP can tell it. And you can see it gives a pretty good starting point. Okay, initialize CDK project, bootstrap environment. This define stack part is pretty key. It says one stack. Now I have a table, persistent resource, and a Lambda, like a stateless resource, and an API gateway, stateless, and it's telling me to put it all in one stack. The CDK best practices actually say you should put these in 2 different stacks, right? And like whether you can debate that, but there's some value in putting them in 2 different stacks, right? Because you say We want stateful resources with databases. Ideally, you want like termination protection on those kind of things. You don't want those stacks to go away so easily. For compute, for stateless, it's okay, right? And like I said, I don't want to debate the best practices right now. I want to just show that the MCP can help you use the best practices, right? Obviously, we can continue to improve the best practices as we go, right? So I'm going to enable the MCP. I'm going to share the same query, and you can see the difference in the outcome. So I'm just going to reload. And you can see I have the ICMCP spinning up. It should be ready in a second now. I'm going to ask the same question, right? Oops, looks like it didn't use the MCP. It does that sometimes, and obviously the demo guards have to be in your favor.
That was quick.
Yeah, I don't know. It's sometimes you're gonna have to scream at it, right? And be like, it just, yeah, see, it's so dumb sometimes. I'm gonna spin it up again. So in an ideal world, it would use the CDK best practices MCP tool, which is what it's doing obviously before we started the call. I'm just going to remove this for now, so give it less stuff to follow. Yeah, there we go. So now it's pulling from the MCP, right? So it's doing CDK best practices, which is actually giving it this, right? So what we did is we distilled like stuff from different sources of best practices and a bit of team opinion, so CDK NAG, and we put it into this markdown file for the model to follow, right? And you'll also see it searches for constructs, right? So the pattern I asked for actually is really well known. So it will look for stuff, and actually it found AWS samples. So it looks for AWS samples, it'll look for solutions constructs. So really good gold standard stuff that's on GitHub. And if it finds a similar pattern, it will just try to use that in the package, right? Mm-hmm. And then it's searching for documentation as well. It's going to find all of that stuff. And now it's initializing my application. You can actually see it over here in the terminal. Screen is a bit small, but you can see it. So whatever Kiro does here shows up in the terminal. It's actually it is scaffolding my application right now. Now, in this case, obviously, it's going ahead to code. The reason I hadn't said do not write code yet is that it would tell me to do two different stacks, right? One a database stack and one a compute stack. And then those will spin up with two different termination protection. So it would be difficult to actually delete your database stack, but it would be easy to delete your compute and spin it up again. So it's actually scaffolding the API, as you can see, right? It's already doing that. Yeah, so this is Kiro. It's going to go on and it's going to do its thing. But yeah, so also you can see best practices, L2 constructs, grant methods. Obviously, we need to update with the latest grant guidance, generated names, and the Lambda code in a separate directory. I'm going to say, okay, do whatever you want. That's fine, right? Typically, for me personally, like I come back and I review after it's done. So I don't interrupt when it's doing stuff because I like to look at the whole thing instead of looking at like partial files. So this is pretty quick scaffolding, as you can see, like it's gotten spun up. This is still one stack though. Yeah, if I had time to like go talk to the agent a bit, it would have ended up being two different stacks. Unfortunately, it didn't get to show that. Yeah, so it's also going to go ahead and synthesize, right? To make sure that so it goes into this loop of like doing things automatically and self-correction. Obviously, you don't have to do this, so you can also stop it and like and interact with it as well, right? As you can see, I'm literally not doing anything at all. I'm just sitting here. It's figuring out the scaffolding at least. For me personally, this is valuable because at the start, I want the setup to be fine. I don't have to worry about installing dependencies, if it's building or not building. And once the baseline is there, I can go and I can talk to it and say, okay, actually, I want to do something different instead. To keep the demo short, I will, once this is done, I will also just run like a CDK nag check, so you can see how CDK nag works with this. It actually gives you the things that can be improved using nag. So yeah, I mean, this is boring to watch in a demo, but as you can see, it's like you can go away and you can do something else instead, right? And it, yeah, you can see we have a CDK out directory as well, or we should have a CDK out directory once it's done. Yeah, I think I will kill it here because I think the idea is that, okay. I'm just gonna say run CDK nag. So it's updating the code to run nag. So in a previous build, what I did is I basically ran nag, and then it gave me a bunch of things that it could and could not do, and I saved it to a file. Right? And I said, okay, I'm just going to keep this as a checklist for later on. So I'll come back to nag for compliance whenever I want to actually, like when I'm ready to ship the code and I want to do compliance checks at the last, I'll just ship it. Yeah, I have to make it, chill for a bit. Okay. Yeah, so this is, I think I will stop here. I think the idea is put across, right? Like it has, so the point to emphasize it has CDK-specific tools here, right? So these tools are searching for CDK samples and constructs across AWS serverless patterns, AWS solutions constructs, these GitHub repos, constructs.dev examples, right? And CDK documentation as well. And it's not generic AWS knowledge. I think I really want to emphasize this, right? It's CDK-specific patterns. So for the AWS knowledge, for like how to build your app to work the way you want, the knowledge MCP fills that gap, right? It helps you figure out, find AWS documentation and figure it out. For CDK-specific of like, I know what I want to build, help me to build it correctly, and then do the validation loop yourself. The MCP is where it comes in. I will skip the power, but basically the power is the same thing. It's just a wrapper around the MCP. So the power is a set of instructions to tell the model what to do using the MCP tools. So you can see it's using the MCP tools here. It's just telling it how to use it in a flow, right? I don't want to get into it because it's going to be duplicating and we're short on time. So yeah. Any questions?
Perfect. Thanks for the demo. Any other questions? I think I have one or two.
I would also have one.
Yeah, Christian, go ahead.
Yeah, sure.
If I use the MCP server or the Kiro Power, I assume that the best practices that the agent will then use are somehow integrated in either the MCP server or the Kiro Power. Yeah. How does it deal with when I have steering files locally in my repository that might conflict with the best practices from the Power or the MCP server? Does the MCP or the Kiro Power enforce its own rules, or does it more rely on my own guidelines that I have locally?
So there's no enforcement. I think the best practices are intended to be a reference or a lookup. So it will look up the best practices and it will tell you what it's going to do. So like I said, in this case, Kiro just went off and did stuff. Normally I say, hey, don't write code yet. And it gives me a plan first. So I wanted to tell me what it's going to do. And then it uses the CDK best practices as a reference. So if you look at this, right, this is just a lookup. So there's no input here. And it's just pulling up the markdown file of best practices, right? And so it's feeding these best practices into context. And the model is going to use this to make decisions. But there's no enforcement of like, hey, don't listen to anything else, right? Like it's very much still in your hands as a user to tell the agent, okay, follow this or don't follow this.
Yeah,
Typically,
that's exactly the point. These CDK best practices might not fit to my best practices or rules. So the moment when the agent takes this, it gets some bias that, hey, these are the best practices that you should use, and typically not the CDK best practice that I have in my steering docs. And that's also a challenge that I often have with the tooling works, but it often has its own kind of model how CDK best practices should look like, and not reflecting my own best practices. And I'm struggling in this conflict then with the agent to enforce my guardrails instead of the ones from the MCP service.
Maybe I can put some light on that. So in Kiro, the precedence order is your local steering files over the MCP servers connected. So your local steering files have higher precedence. If there is something in your steering file that is not specific enough, it might take something that is in the MCP, right? But your steering file can override any behavior that you would like to enforce.
That is good.
Your steering files first.
Okay, yeah, that would also have been my question. So how do I tell the MCP I always want everything in one stack? Yes, that's
the steering file, exactly. Yes, your personal preferences over the global guidance.
Yeah, I will say though, like I think we'd be interested in how like your best practices differ from CDK best practices, or at least like in terms of like, is it more company policy or constraints, or just like a personal preference? Because it would be nice if we can build a native way to incorporate that approach, right? Of like, hey, if a customer specifies their best practices, then please prioritize these over the generic ones. So if you can give us examples maybe later on of what that looks like, I think we can work towards it and make it easier for you as well.
Even better is probably if we put the decision tree into the doc, right? So you must have a reason why you say, oh, I want everything in one stack or whatever, right? And so we can say, if this situation applies, do this. If the other situation applies, do that. That could be part of the steering doc. And then it just becomes a matter of which one is your case, right? I think it's more useful to put the decision tree into the doc than just a potential path to decision tree, and then you go like, no, but wait, I had a different branch in my organization.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that sounds great. I will definitely find the documentation that I wrote for my customers for that. Why?
Especially the motivation, right? That's going to be very helpful for us and for other people as well. Why you made choices the way you did, because you know what you're doing, right? we want to capture that decision path.
Yeah, and the other question would be from my side. So what's the tooling part? Is it just returning a predefined static string, or is there really logic in the tooling coming from the question of, now that skills exist, could that be a skill instead of an MCP?
So for best practices, I think it could be a skill because it's returning a static file, basically, right? But search is actually doing search. So we have a remote backend, which is searching a knowledge base. Okay. So what we're doing is we are indexing CDK documentation on a daily basis, right? So from docs.amazon.com, from GitHub, like AWS serverless patterns, from solutions constructs repos as well, from constructs.dev, etc. So we're indexing that, and this is searching. So when it searches for like API gateway, Lambda, REST API, it gets responses specific to that, right? Okay. So this is like a remote search functionality. Skills are mostly supposed to be like markdown or local scripts. So I think this would be a little different, but the best practices could be modeled as a skill for sure. Yeah.
Okay, Christian has his hand up.
Yeah. Also, an issue that I often have that I also reported back to Pranita was, how do I deal with conflicting MCP servers? So let's say I have the ISC MCP server that has documentation research capabilities, the knowledge server itself also, then I have the AWS MCP server and potentially also context 7. So that's really often, I want to stick with, let's take this use case, I want to stick with CDK documentation research, but I often see that the agent struggles to find the right tool when they overlap too much.
Yes.
How can I deal with this?
So the knowledge MCP and the AWS MCP, they are basically alike. So the knowledge MCP is wrapped within the AWS MCP. So you should get the same quality results from it. So you can probably ditch, if you have the AWS MCP configured, you can ditch the knowledge MCP. So you should be fine with that. With third parties like Seven, you might need to take either one out and disable, right? Or if you don't like the results, toggle between them. That's very hard for us to navigate. We cannot control what is in the 7 or in any other third-party MCP. So we can only vent out what we think is best practices in that regard. So, but within the MCP set AWS is shipping, the AWS MCP is the one that is going GA very soon, and is the one that incorporates what the other MCPs have. The IAC MCP is very specific to CDK and CloudFormation, so that has additional best practices and knowledge in there that is not general guidance. And so it very much depends on which part of the stack you are. You might want to have, if you concentrate on the infrastructure part, you might want to have the IC MCP, while if you're working on other parts of the software where you're integrating your application logic directly with, I don't know, uploading stuff to S3, then you might want to have the AWS MCP enabled. But I think that the launch notion for the IAC MCP also is to integrate that in the AWS MCP so that we reduce this amount of burden for everyone.
That sounds perfect. Yeah, thanks. And given time, I think we should switch to the second demo.
Yes, that would be Alizen.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. I will share my screen and talk about PR review tool. So we have a tool for PR reviews, but before going into the tool, I want to talk about first the process. Why do we even care about PR reviews in CDK? So as we all know, CDK is an open source project, so we have a community, and most of the PRs are coming from the community. And since we care about the community, we care about also the PR reviews. This also has some side effects that we are having like free new features. Of course, there is a so we have to do the PR reviews, but any PR without writing any code, we are having any features that increase the feature adoption. We get the bug fixes. And at the end, this also goes to the cycle back that we have a higher community trust, and then we get more features, more bug fixes. So there is the whole cycle. And that makes the whole PR review an important process in the CDK. And CDK is very also PR review heavy process. So we do more PR reviews than we write PRs. And that's the whole cycle. So there are some specific challenges in CDK PR review process. Basically, CDK is all of the AWS, so there are many services within the CDK, and that makes this whole process a bit challenging comparing to other products, because you have to know about very, very niche details, every service has different requirements, and so on. So like below here, I just sketched a process on like this is a high level process. So you get the PR, and in this PR now if you don't know about the service, now you have to understand the service, or like some specific niche that is a new feature, then you have to understand this, and then you have to understand the construct. So what is this construct do? Because now this construct is also an abstraction of the underlying server, so it's a bit opinionated. So you have to understand this construct. Then you understand the CloudFormation behavior. What is this construct about? What is this feature about? So yeah, this is a bit like in parallel, maybe not sequential. But so you have to check. So there is some understanding what this does before you're actually reviewing the actual code. And then you come to the point that you want to review this code. And so there are also some mental checks. So I just highlight one of these here. This is CDK is we cannot break the customers. So you have to check it's backwards compatible and you have to check the regressions, right? So these are pretty important. So we should not cause any breaking changes or regressions. And then you provide feedback and this whole cycle goes on. Maybe there is also some other stuff that we have to check again. So basically, every PR is like learning a new AWS service from scratch, and while you're protecting this backwards compatibility. And you have to, there are very specific nuances on this. So yeah, it's not pretty straightforward, and it takes some time to get used to this whole process. And to help with this, we built a peer review tool that help us on some of these processes. So here, how the tool works. So we have, so a PR arrives, and so we have different type of analysis, and the first stage is we check the context, like the issue, what is this issue about, what is this PR about. So it builds some context around this. And then it also check the documentation. So here, as you can see, this is mainly covering this part, like it's looking at the service, it's looking at the construct, some CloudFormation. So like this is basically mapping the first process as how human does. So it gathers the context on the PR and the service, right? So this is the first step. And then after this first step, now we have a specialized analysis that we do. One is regression risk, and the second is breaking change. So there are different type of regressions. So we make some high level categories, for example, tokens, yeah, which is very common cause of regressions in CDK. So when you look at the past regressions, token was one of the yeah, major causes, and it can really easily slip from your eyes. Input validation, so you are because you don't know the defaults of the service, what kind of input to put. So there, like you have to know about if this is an input, it's a valid, it will deploy, it will fail in deployment time, this kind of thing. Some GSAI issues, default values, edge cases. There are this kind of main categories that we built, and breaking change. Yeah, so it's stable or experiment. If experimental, you can do breaking changes, but we don't also want to do it at all the times. So API service changes, behavior, CloudFormation impact. It's like, do we have like a replacement with this that could make downtime on the service? So it collects all the analysis, and then we synthesize this whole different analysis into one. And then at the end, so here the synthesis is maybe there are some duplicates on this, so it's just creates a high level findings. And then there's like at the end, it's just like a yes or no. So you have if there's a regression risk, yes or no, breaking check, yes or no. And this helps us with this whole process, right? Because there are like so easy way that you can miss things, and that could end up in regression. So this is for us like yeah, a helper tool. So I have here also some examples, like some findings that it found. So this is at the moment. So we have like a separate UI where we see these findings. And so we have like a tabular form here that talks about this finding. So here is the snippet that caused this. Here the main thing was the conflicting removal policies. So it suggested to have here like a validation on the existing policies because this could conflict. So this was one finding. Another finding, there was like some merge conflict markers within the code. So it found this, and then it warned out, oh, you should remove those. So this is, yeah, some sanity checks as well. And so here another finding was the default policy here was put wrong, so it was not retained, it was a destroy. So it found this from the documentation and suggested in the documentation that this was wrong. Yeah, these are some of the findings. So I have also some questions for you today. So if we make this tool one day public, how should it reach you, right? So this is the question is in twofold. So we would like to have some feedback here. What could be the best UX for you? So that's why. So it would be a nice session to discuss about this. So I put here some rough options, but if you have even more ideas, that's great. We can have those as well. But so it's the first question. Maybe you would like to see this like directly in the PR comments. Like there's a PR review bot, it posts like a summary on the PR, and then you also see the inline comments. So you have it says zero friction, but maybe it's a bit noisy and about to trust. So that's the first option. Or like I showed, so there's like a separate dashboard that you could see the PR analysis, and then you can just like drill down all the findings. So it's more richer UX, but then you have like a one click more, they have an extra tab that you have to check it out and see. And yeah, the second is the trigger mode, right? So we would like to see like an automatic manner that it just runs on the every new PR, or you would like to rather on demand that you yourself trigger this and see the results. All right. Yeah, that was my two questions. Happy to hear if you have any questions or any ideas.
Perfect, thanks. Yeah, let's first start in the room. Any questions? Because I have some. So no other questions?
Go ahead.
Yeah, let me start with answering your questions because you asked one first, so you'll get an So I think option A, having less PR comments, is meeting customers where they are. So because you are already in your GitHub workflow, which also means if you do direct inline code comments and all the things, it will show up in your IDE if you use the GitHub plugins. So your IDE will show inline comments. If it's a separate dashboard, you will not you will have that breaking the tooling, like, oh yeah, I need to go somewhere else to check it. What would be important, I think, is that the bot is deleting old comments when creating a new one. Otherwise, it will get very, very noisy. So when it's doing a new review after you change something, it needs to get rid of the old one. That's exactly how, for example, CodeRabbit is handling that. So it's just removing the old comment and creating a new one. So otherwise you scroll down and get like 50 comments that are all several pages long. But having it inside the GitHub PR means that all the tooling also can show it in your IDE.
Yeah.
And the trigger, I think, is something that you need to decide because that's only a money decision. Do you want to run that on every commit or not? Yeah. So my questions would be basically on that, how you're running that. Did you talk to the security agent, frontier agent, or security agent, frontier agent team of the new service that you launched at reInvent? Because I can think that this is not only relevant for the CDK library, but also for company libraries of constructs that might use the security agent so that for code reviews, so that generic code reviews on repositories of customers also get the benefits of that, or at least parts of it. And I think that it's also true for the presentation we had before. All that knowledge should also be in the security agent when doing code reviews to make sure that all the things are also used there. And we talked about that yesterday about CDK Terrain, the new open source initiative or community initiative to continue the work on CDK for Terraform. We would also be very, very happy to have the same flow on the CDK Terrain repos and not only the CDK repo, because obviously we have exactly the same questions and the same things that we need to take care of It's just Terraform instead of CloudFormation.
Okay, so I think regarding the security agent, the scope of this PR, like this is the scope here is the regression and breaking change. So it's not really, so there are like different scopes in between to have like a security review versus like a regression review. So we did not have like any conversation regarding this, but I think it's a bit differs from the context. And this is for the CDK, like this tool is very specific to the way that CDK works. So it's very niche on CDK patterns. So I think, yeah, you could basically differ a bit with different, but I think for security agent, it's not really overlapping the way that the tool works. Yeah, with CDK Terraform, I think it's overall that the tool could work with overall the architecture, how the construct should develop, and and this kind of niche things. I think this could be generalized also across CDK. But yeah, I think yeah, there it could be reused. And regarding the first thing, the commits override, yeah, I think that's even that would be default behavior. So that's the every if it's run on the every commit, we will just overwrite it, and it will not show the old commits because they're not because they're maybe even fixed and we don't even need them. So it will be
Exactly.
just overrated.
Great. Any other questions or feedback?
I think there was a question from Christian in the chat that was still about Kiro specs and autonomous loops like the Ralph Wiggum stuff. I tried to answer that as good as I could. But I think Christian left, right? Yeah, Christian left. So not sure if he has seen my answer.
We can follow up on CDK Dev on that.
That's true. That's true.
Ah,
He's still there.
but he's not able to talk, so he is able to read. So,
So great demo, Ali. I hope this really helps our community to get things faster forward. So as you all know, the CDK team is a mighty small group of people in AWS that try to meet a community that has hundreds of developers. So us maintaining that speed requires us to be more clever in doing so and enabling the contributions to be much more in prod readiness so that we can be faster in it. And that's one approach that we try to get towards. So we have done a lot of AI for that internally already to test it out. And we would like to give that same power to the community and see how it goes. So we require feedback on that, as Ali was asking for how we want to use it. I think that can be powerful. And I would like to see that as soon as possible in your hands so that we can develop CDK faster to your needs.
that sounds perfect, especially with the demo from Pahud yesterday in the community meeting with the contributor skill to make it easier to contribute. So definitely you need something on the other end to make...
We need to close the loop, exactly. So we want to have more contributions. That's what Pahud was working on. We want to be faster and then also getting it merged in. So
Exactly. Otherwise, you're DDoSing yourself.
exactly. And I think the team is very aware of that and I would not say afraid, but very aware.
You can't say afraid because that's what the Pranita was saying yesterday.
They are all brave. Okay, cool. So I think time is up. There are no other people in the room anymore. We can continue discussions on Slack in community channels. Okay, thank you so much. We appreciate any feedback that you have. And Thorsten, good luck editing the video.